Let me give you a little bit of background, and I want to keep it very brief because I really want to get to the heart of this training. So as Ben said, I work with an organization called VIA. I'm on staff right now with Lamar Baptist Church, but what I love is mobilizing the church and mobilizing students for missions. That has been the heartbeat of who I am. That's the heartbeat of what VIA is. We mobilize the global church to send missionaries to the unreached with a vision of seeing all believers fully engaged in their God-given role in fulfillment of the Great Commission. I'll give you a little bit of background because it's helpful for this training. This is a picture of my family. It's not complete. My wife would kill me for this, and so would my kids. So my wife is there next to me. We've been married for 27 years on Friday. It is a testament to God. Next to her is our daughter Dara, and behind her is her husband Lucas. They actually met at a missionary school in Uganda where we served for 10 years. He is from Switzerland, but is also an American citizen, was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee. What my wife would kill me for is that there is a grandbaby missing from that. Charlotte Grace is a little over a year, and then we have a new one. Her name will be Ellie. She should be born any day now, so we're excited about that. Next to her is our other daughter, Rachel. That is a longer story that I'm not going to go into today, but she is obviously not my biological child, but she is part of our family. We did an adult adoption with her. She came with us from Uganda. She is married to a man named Isaac, who is not pictured here. They both live in Arlington. Love having them close to us. And then our son Dade on the end is married to a young lady named Abby. We've known his wife since she was born. My wife went to the hospital the day she was born and was with them. We've known that family for a long time, and so it's been a real blessing to watch all of them marry godly spouses who love the Lord. We served with Africa Inland Mission in Uganda for 10 years. This is how AIM's kind of set up in 4 different regions. I oversaw Central Region, which is the countries of Chad, Central African Republic, Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, Uganda, and South Sudan. That's not all that important, but what is important is that I met VIA when I was with AIM. Met them back in 2012. Then they were called the Center for Mission Mobilization. And our heartbeat as AIM and their heartbeat as Center for Mission Mobilization then were identical, and that was to train up national churches to send their own missionaries to go and reach the unreached. And part of that training is why I fell in love with them. Today, I'm going to focus just on one resource. You have a book in front of you. If you didn't get a book, let me grab one for you real quick. There you go. Put one there too. This is one resource that VIA has called Welcoming the Nations. There's several other resources they have. Explore is a general overview of what it means to be on mission. We've got mobilization, that's how to mobilize and what you do when you are mobilized. And then my favorite, or one of my favorites, is God's Heart for Muslims. Not necessarily how to reach them, but God's genuine heart for all peoples. And that's what today's about too, and Welcoming the Nations, is it's really about looking at those people around us and saying, how do we welcome them well, right? And so that's really where we want to concentrate. I'm not going to go through the whole book with you. We don't have time for that. That's why I've given you a copy. We're going to focus on one lesson in there, and that's lesson 4. I think it's around page 37. Love for you to turn there. Love for you to take some notes if you want to as we go through this, but don't feel compelled to. Don't feel like you have to. I want to ask you a question before we get started. Are we that different? No, we're not. And I hope that you'll see that as we go through there. I have some questions to ask you, and here's how I want to do this. I'm going to ask you a few questions. If the question applies to you, I want you to raise your hand, okay? If it doesn't, leave your hand down. We'll start off with an easy one. Who was a straight-A student in high school? Okay, all right. You got to get your hands up higher than that. Who is never on time? All right, all right. Who's a Dallas Cowboys fan? Oh, not many of you. There's no reason to be this year, right? Okay. Who has a tattoo? Nobody. Okay, that's the first group I've ever had that nobody did. Who's ever been in love? I was going to say, Timbrel, your hand better go up. Yeah. Who has beaten cancer or knows someone who's beaten cancer? Okay. Who is created in the image of God? Yeah, that's where all of our hands go up, right? I think the important thing to realize in that is that we're diverse, right? We saw hands go up for different things, other things we didn't. but we all share commonalities, right? We all share common things. And that's what we need to learn to embrace. We have to let those things kind of push us towards compassion and embracing those around us that come from different places, who may be different than us, look different than us, talk different than us, but we have to be willing to do it. Let me ask another question, and this is going to require some input, so you're going to have to speak up. Don't say it just yet. I'm going to read out some words. Refugee, immigrant, foreigner. What comes to mind? And before you start yelling those things, I want you to be honest. With all that's kind of going on in the world, I want you to try to express your opinion the best you can. There's not a right or wrong in this. Immigrant, refugee, foreigner. What are initial thoughts that come to mind? Just yell them out. Politics. Good. Okay. What else? What? Government. Okay. What else? War. Yeah. Any other words come to mind? Need. Yeah. Do you have one?
No.
Okay. Now think of specific people that fit into those categories. Again, we're talking immigrant, refugee, foreigner. Think of different people you know that fit into those categories. What are the things that come to mind? Is it a specific ethnicity? Is it a specific religion? Is it educated or uneducated? Dangerous, safe? You don't have to give me answers on that. Just think about it. That's our starting point for any cross-cultural work, right? Trying to determine our views on things, how we feel about them. Recognizing our views and opinions and, dare I say, bias. And I know none of us want to admit to that. We all want to go, no, we're not biased at all, and yet there is some of that built into each of us, right? And that's where I hope we get today, because the sooner I think you recognize your own opinions or your own views, your own bias, the sooner you get closer to embracing people the way God intended them to be embraced. I also want you to kind of keep in mind your mission and vision as UTA BSM, or is it Maverick BSM now? Is that okay? I'll use the correct terminology. Straight from your website, I didn't call Ben on this one. I just went to the website to see what you guys would see if you were looking. Our mission is to, how many people know this? Our mission is to reach, grow, and send college students, right? That's your mission and vision. I'm not here to lecture you on that today, but I do want you to kind of to keep that in the front of your mind. Reach, grow, and send college students. It's important to know where that intersects with the nations. Okay, I want you to reflect on those that you were thinking about. Again, immigrant, refugee, foreigner. Think about those people, specific people to you right now. Specific people that you know in there that are from another country, don't know Jesus, but are part of your circles of influence. Everybody got a name? Those of you that do, I want you to call out their name. I don't want a first and a last, just a first name. Call out their names for me. Who can you think? Okay. Other names that come to your mind? Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Mine's Kyle. The names that you are thinking of, even if you didn't call one out, are the reason why you're here, or should be part of the reason why you're here, right? That should be why you're focused on reaching students. Don't forget that, but if you couldn't think of a name, can I challenge you to really start putting your mind to that? Who are people in my circles of influence already that don't know Jesus? Who are people in my circles of influence that just don't understand what I understand right now? We're going to spend some time talking about obstacles, so all of this kind of ties together. I was going to do an exercise with you. I think I'll hold off on that. We might do that here at the end if we have time, but let's get through a few things first. I know we could come up with an extensive list of obstacles that kind of stand in our way, right? We're going to focus on 4 of those right now. And I want you to not necessarily go with your immediate reaction, because a lot of you are going to look at these words, pride, prejudice, fear, and busyness. And For a lot of you, you're going to be like me. You're going to look at it and say, that's not me. I don't have any bias. I don't have any prejudice in this. I certainly don't have any fear. I'm not prideful, right? But can I tell you, from someone who served overseas for 10 years, immersed in another culture, that's a great admission. That's good. I think these are honest obstacles and fears that we face. And that's what we want to talk through today. You need to learn to deal with these. So let's just jump into them. And I'm going to take them one at a time, but we'll talk through each one. What is pride? Excessive self-esteem, right? We can go with the textbook definition: a high view of oneself compared to others, conceit or ego. We have a great example in the New Testament, don't we, in Peter? Who did Peter not want to reach? Who did he not want to go to at the beginning? The Gentiles, yeah, right? He said, no, they're not worthy to follow Jesus. But we know Peter gets over it. Acts 10 says, truly I understand that God shows no partiality, but in every nation, anyone who fears him and does what is right is acceptable to him, right? So he had this bias towards the Gentiles, but he got over it enough to say, hang on, no partiality needs to be shown. In fact, he goes on in 1 Peter 5:5, all of you clothe yourselves with humility towards one another, because God opposes the proud but shows favor to the humble, right? This is an easy one to slip into in other cultures. It's a real easy one to slip into. And I know we don't always think about it, but we kind of have this attitude of my way is right and their way is wrong. In AIM, we kind of had this core value. African Inland Mission, we had this core value about culture that we hung on to dearly. It was, it's not wrong, it's just different. Right? Think about how that phrase alone would change things. I had to put it in perspective for myself. I remember the first time that I went to meet somebody for coffee, right? I'm in Uganda, and they said, hey, can we meet at 2 o'clock? Sure. I get there at 2 o'clock, and I'm just sitting there. An hour later, it's 3 o'clock. I'm still just sitting there. An hour later, it's 4 o'clock. I'm still just sitting there. And they stroll in at 4:30 as if nothing's wrong. Just, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Sorry, I got caught up in some stuff, and now I'm here. And I said, well, it's time for me to go. Here's me in my typical American mentality, right? Sorry, it's 4:30. I just stuck around to tell you how wrong you are so that I can go back and do what I need to do. And it was very humbling for me to get out of that, to say, it's not wrong, it's just different. It's not wrong because they had another person that they bumped into on the way as they were walking here, not driving a car. They had to talk with that person because they were obligated culturally to speak with them. And I was the afterthought on that. Not because I wasn't important, but because that came up immediately and it was more important. So again, it's not wrong, it's just different. What are some examples that you guys can think of where pride is evident in our culture today or our churches today? Anything come to mind? What? Everywhere. Yeah. What are some specific examples of that? Where pride pops in? None? In the classroom. How's that? Yeah. We don't want to embarrass ourselves. Yeah. Where are other places? Do you see it in your churches? Yeah, we don't do that at all, do we? Well, I loved everything about it, but the worship wasn't quite there, right? I could actually deal with I loved everything about it, but the preaching wasn't there. But the things that we focus on, right? I didn't like the small group, or I didn't like the way they did the Lord's Supper, or I didn't like the way they did this or that. Yeah. Yeah, could be. I think what we have to think through with pride is, where are we holding on to that dearly? Where are we holding on and not letting go of our own personal biases and our personal opinions on those things, right? How do we let go of that pride in a way that says to somebody else, I'm not better than you. You're just like me, and I love you the same, right? As we go through these, we're going to speed through these a little bit, but as we go through them, I've written a prayer for you guys at the end of each one. So I'm going to read those to you after we get to the end of each one of these obstacles. And I want you to internalize it. I did not print these out for you. They're not in your book. I can send this to Ben. He can print these out for you later if he wants to. But here's the one for pride. Father, we ask that you remove any remnants of pride from our lives and allow us to focus solely on loving you with our whole heart, mind, soul, and strength, which will help us love our neighbors as ourselves. Make that your prayer when it comes to something like pride. And then we get into prejudice. It's not the movie Pride and Prejudice, right? So what is prejudice? Prejudging. That's the kind of weird definition with very little knowledge of a person. In other words, we judge based on our limited knowledge of a situation, right? We kind of let our sinful minds and hearts, if you will, fill in the blanks for us. Psychologists have this natural phenomenon that occurs with this. They call it the us versus them mentality. We've all heard of that, right? So who is the us? The us is who we're comfortable around, right? It's our affinity groups. It's each other. It's our churches. It's BSM. It's whoever. We are the us, right? You can apply that to sports teams or whatever. And then them is anyone else outside that group. The problem that we get into is we kind of get caught in this pointing the finger at them from the us, right? Like what them are doing is different from us, therefore we are right and they are wrong. And we can't do that. What examples of prejudice do you see in the culture of the church today? There's plenty of them. Help me. That doesn't happen at all, does it? People who don't share the same theological beliefs. Sure, yeah. We're in the midst of that big time in a lot of churches today, right? Are we Reformed, are we not? Are we dispensationalist, or are we Arminianist, right? Denominations, yeah. You don't go to a Baptist church? You go to a Bible church? I don't know. You don't go to a Bible church? You go to one of those non-denominationals? Right? Yeah, there's a little bit of that in there. What else? What other examples of prejudice do we see in the culture of the church? Yeah, that's a good one. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. If you think about current events today, how do you think most people view immigrants? Negatively. Why? Political views, yeah. Why do we have a negative view? Why do you think most, I'm not saying you do in this room, right? But why do you think most people have a negative view of that? Yeah, that plays a big part in it. Yeah, you were saying that too. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe like if someone looks similar to you, you like them more, and if they don't, you just kind of see them as a different person.
Sure. Can I ask you to internally reflect for just a minute and ask yourself how you really view those people? How do you view immigrants? How do you view refugees? How do you view foreigners that you come in contact with? Now, the problem is we can't get our mind around that completely, right? Because we're going, wait, those in my circles of influence that I know, they're like, I know them really well. Like, I don't have a view of them, but those over here that I see on social media or other things, well, maybe I have a view of them. Does God love them all? Yeah, he does. Ask yourself a couple of questions. What prejudice do I have against those from other cultures? Be honest with yourself. I don't want you to answer this out loud. I want you to be honest with yourself. What prejudice do you have against those from other cultures? Think about that for just a minute. Let it sink in. Be honest. Do I tend to make blanket judgments about other cultures or people groups? A good example of that, somebody asked me, the last time I was doing this down in Dallas, they asked me, they said, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, for instance, do we just group all cultures together, right? Do I just go with what I see on the news or social media? Do I say all of this ethnicity, all of this religion are the same? I'll be honest, when I went to Uganda, I viewed all Muslims the same. Should I have done that? What's different about Muslims? Are there different sects of Muslims? There are. The other thing that's important is that in a lot of Africa, those Muslims are just cultural Muslims. Just like those Christians are just cultural Christians, right? I was born into a Muslim home, therefore I'm Muslim. I was born into a Christian home, therefore I'm Christian, with absolutely no belief system at all. We get in danger when we start grouping people and making judgments about them. But if you'll take time to really just stop and think about it, I think you'll find that you do this more than you care to admit. I also want, this can sound a little bit controversial, and I don't mean it that way, but I also want to be very clear that those who come here also carry with them their own pride and prejudice, right? We're dealing with it, but they are too as they come into a new country, into a new environment, into a new culture, right? They're very proud of places they come from. And so they come here and they say, wait, you do this way in America? I've got my son-in-law that I showed you a picture of earlier. He's from Switzerland. His sister comes to visit quite a bit now that there's a niece involved, right? And so she'll fly over here and she lands and we pick her up, and the first thing I hear is, why is there so much traffic here? And why is this done this way? And why can't we find good food here? I agree with you. But in her mind, because she's coming from this small town in Switzerland, everything here is wrong. Everything here is different. In Switzerland, we do it this way, right? Oh, how many times I screwed up and said that in Uganda. No, they would not survive in Bangladesh. I had an old professor one time. I'm going to put this up here. He shared this with me. I was a speech comm major and a journalism minor. My speech comm professor said this one time. He said, in any communication breakdown, spoken or unspoken, 51% of the responsibility is always mine. Does that make sense? In other words, if we would get to the point where we are looking for that one thing that we could do differently that changed it, it now belongs to us instead of pointing the finger at somebody else, right? So if I can always claim 51%, then I'm saying there's something I could have changed that would have changed this whole communication breakdown and not caused it. And I think that's what we get into in this. If you would remember that, my wife loves when I say this, and then she will remind me every day that I've said this before, right? She's like, where's your 51% in this? I'm not saying do that, okay? But there is something to that. As you think about prejudice, let me read this prayer to you. Father, please reveal to us where we have judged and what prejudices we have against those around us. Help us let go of mistruths and ungodly thinking and embrace our lost brothers and sisters who need a Savior. Because really, guys, that's why we're doing this, right? All right, obstacle of fear. How many of you are fearful of anything? Is there something? We're all scared of something, aren't we? Okay, I hope we are. Maybe some of you aren't. Fear, anxious concern caused by the perception of harm to yourself or others. We tend to say there's three different main fears: the fear of being uncomfortable, the fear for myself, and the fear of failure. Basically, these are our comfort zones, right? It can be touchy for us. How many of you are willing to admit that you have certain comfort zones that you're kind of afraid to let go of? Good, thank you. Yeah. I don't know that I was at your age. I'm like, no, I can go out on campus, I can share Christ with people, I can go out here and I can be bold in this area, and then I'd walk out and I'd be like, I don't really know. Well, I don't know, 10 people have walked past me, but I just did not feel the Lord leading me to share with any of them, right? And it's because I was fearful. Now, I'm not saying that if you go out to campus in a little bit and you don't sense that the Lord is asking you to share that you're doing it wrong. What I am saying is that sometimes those fears burden us down. They're like, ugh, I don't know, like I just didn't find anybody I could share with. Well, then you probably weren't looking around too much, and you were probably a little bit caught up in that obstacle of fear, okay? 1 John 4:18 reminds us of what? There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. Very, very important. I'm going to share with you a personal story. In Uganda, we have motorcycles that are known as boda bodas. I don't know why they call them boda bodas, but that's what they call them, right? I grew up riding bikes. I grew up riding motorcycles everywhere. I rode a motorcycle when I was your age in college. So I went out and I was doing everything from sustainable agriculture to theological education, and I needed some place or some sort of transportation that would get me deep into the bush where my car wouldn't go, right? On these little back trails. And so I went off and bought a motorcycle, Honda 125, not a very big thing, but it was souped up, so it was about a 200-pound bike. Driving to the farm one day. Left my house, going down a road. There's dry seasons in Uganda. There's loose patches of dirt. So you can imagine if you plop down into one of those and make a careless mistake like gunning it really quick, it's going to kick that back tire out. Normally I can control that. This time I couldn't. Next thing I knew, I was landing face down. Jill says God allowed me to slam my face gently into the ground with a 200-pound bike landing right on my back. That was the end result of that. That's where I ended up. Funny story for a second. This was me in the sterile ward of the hospital, okay? Now, what you don't see in that picture is that my head is inside these double glass doors like this, but my feet are hanging outside. They needed me in sterile environment to be able to do these stitches. That's what they called sterile environments. Remember, it's not wrong, it's just different, right? And so as I was sitting there and came out of this and recovered from it, I found real quick that fear was going to grip me a little bit. I'll be honest. We were there for 10 years. This happened in year 1. For 9 years, I did not get back on that bike. I had a tool that God had provided that was going to let me go deep into places I needed to go with the gospel, to go help people that I needed to help, and my own fear limited me from getting back on that bike to go. Now, did I loan it to other people? Did it still get used for kingdom growth? Absolutely. I actually gave it to a Ugandan friend of mine when I left. He was able to go to places he had never dreamed of to be able to take the gospel and share with pastors. It was a great resource and tool, but it wasn't the resource and tool that I needed it to be because I allowed that to cripple me. I share that with you to say we're all crippled by something. We all have these fears that kind of grip us. I don't know what yours are, but you do. And if you sit there and get honest with yourself, I think you'll understand that you have some of those as well. What signs or examples of fear do you see in our culture or churches towards outsiders? Come on, there's a lot of them. Fear of being what? Wrong, okay. Yeah. What else? Signs or examples of fear in our culture or churches towards those from the outside. We're not just talking other cultures right now. How do you feel when you walk into a church for the first time? Does everybody run up and say, "Hi, how are you?" Lost? That's a really good word, lost, right? Like we walk in and go, "Oh, is anybody even going to greet me? Is anybody going to know me? Is anybody going to sit with me?" Right? Imagine now, take that to the nth degree with all of the social media stuff you look at, with all of the things going on. You guys have mentioned politics and other things, right? Think about somebody who's coming out of a Muslim background and walks into a Christian church for the first time. How are they viewed? How are they accepted? Are they loved? I don't know. I'm not in your churches. I'm in mine, and I hope we do a good job of this. But I can tell you just from individual conversations I've had, a lot of our first-time visitors did not feel welcome the first time they walked in the door, right? Because I think the church is often fearful of those things. We're often fearful of seeing people that are outside of our own little circles coming into those circles. So I want you to be careful about that.
Like, isn't that the point?
What's that?
It's like getting outsiders to also know the gospel.
That should be the point, right? We should want to welcome all of those who are coming from everywhere into our midst, whether they're from another country or whether they're from next door, right? We should always want to open our arms to those. And I think some of these things just hold us back from time to time. Your prayer in this one is, Father, you did not give us a spirit of fearfulness, but one of power, love, and self-discipline. Help us to walk in this new spirit you created within us, to be bold in facing fears that creep in. And this is probably the most convicting for me. May not be for you, but the fear or the obstacle of busyness. A state of having or being occupied by too many activities. I'm guessing that doesn't happen to any of us, right? Corey ten Boom. How many of you know who Corey ten Boom is? Yeah, some of you older ones, I get that, right? Corey ten Boom, if you haven't read her story, you need to read it or go watch the movie, The Hiding Place. It's an old movie, but it's a great movie. She was in concentration camps, came out of it, but she said, if the devil cannot make us bad, he will make us busy. And I think we're seeing a manifestation of that today in our culture, right? If he can't make us bad, he will make us busy. Right now, my wife and I lead the college and career class at Lamar Baptist, and one of the things recently that we've taken our group through was John Mark Comer's book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Love the guy, don't agree with all of his theology, but I still love some of the premises of what he says in that book. And one of the things that he gets to in there is the whole thing that we are so busy, so consumed, that we don't have time enough to slow down, that we don't have time enough for the things that really matter. And I think that's true. Sometimes, though, busyness is more than a full schedule. How many of you have a full schedule? How many of you go, I don't have any time to do anything? Okay, all right. I would argue that maybe the busyness of the mundane saps as much time as the busyness of a full schedule. What do I mean by that? Come on, you know what I mean by that. Yeah, these things right here, right? Like the busyness of the mundane. How much time do we spend going in and sitting down and looking at our phone, right? Sometimes for good reasons. We're going and watching a podcast. We're going and listening to a sermon. Not bad things, right? But sometimes we get sapped by this obstacle of busyness where all of a sudden we think we're so busy, but we've now spent 2 hours just, what do you guys call it, doom scrolling? Yeah, there you go, right? Just doom scrolling through things. Or playing games. I used to tell our college group, I love this game called Happy Color. It's just a coloring game. It's the stupidest thing in the world, right? You pull it up and there's all these numbers and you just go around and you fill in the things with all these colors. I had to uninstall it reading through the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry to say, what can I cut out that's sapping my time? I went and looked at my counter, how much time I was spending just coloring stupid pictures, guys. And I didn't realize it. And then I replaced that with other things so that I could actually fill it with things of God. And I think sometimes we have to pull back from that busyness a little bit, whether it's the busyness of a full schedule or the busyness of just the mundane life, the mundane things that go on in life, right? The binge watching, the things that we do to convince ourselves that we just don't have enough time. And yet we do. Galatians 6:9 can encourage us in this. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially those who belong to the family of believers. When I first got to Uganda, I would go and try to meet with as many people as possible. I filled up my schedule more than I probably should have. I thought, I'm this guy, I've got the answers, I've got some Bible training, I've got it all figured out, I'm here to save this nation. Typical missionary mentality when you first get there oftentimes. And I began having these meetings, and after about 3 months, I had a pastor pull me aside, and he said, Joel, I just got to tell you something. He said, you're having little to no impact right now. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you are so busy meeting with people, you've not bothered to get into relationship with people. He said, you're so busy setting appointments, you're so busy teaching us theology, you're so busy setting up projects, but you haven't taken the time to get to know us. I am so glad that was said to me in year 1 because it changed my philosophy for the next 9 years. I was able to develop those relationships. I remember sitting with a pastor who came one time. He came to my house, and some missionaries. He was the pastor of a church that some missionaries had started. And he came to my house, and I let him in. All these houses in Uganda are compounds, right? They have these big gates. You have to open them up. And he came into this compound, and I let him come up. We came inside. We sat down, had a peanut butter and marshmallow sandwich together. If you have never had one, you got to go fix one. Okay, it's delicious. And as he's leaving, he gets in the car, and he has tears rolling down his face. And I said, Enoch, what's wrong? He said, in all my years of doing ministry with missionaries, I've never been invited into a house to sit down for a meal. I've always been told that business takes place at the church and that this is a private place for you guys to get away from the culture. I finally understood what that other pastor had been telling me. It's about relationship. How much are we willing to put ourselves out there outside of our comfort zones, letting go of all these prejudices that we have, letting go of the pride, letting go of the busyness, letting go of the fear, and just being with people. There is something to the ministry of just being, of being present with someone, right? You don't know how much that's going to do to win them to the Lord. Now, I'm not suggesting at all that you just go sit and say, Ben, I sat with 10 people today, and we just sat there for 5 hours, and we had a great conversation, but I never talked about Jesus. Not suggesting that, but it may take several days of the 5-hour conversation about nothing to ever get to the 30-minute conversation about Jesus, right? Let go of those things that are holding you back. Let go of those things that are tying you down. A couple of questions for you. What major obstacles might exist in our life or church that keep us too busy? And what might be God's response to these? That first question alone, I can come up with a lot of answers for. What's that? College work. It depends on what it is, right? Like, I mean, if it's your classes, you better do the work, right? That it is. But do we keep ourselves so busy with church stuff sometimes that we don't have time to get outside of that? I think that's where I would encourage you to go to. Am I so busy that I don't have time to do the things that I need to do? Yeah, laziness is a good one. Again, I think that goes back to the busyness of the mundane, right? I don't have time to do anything, but now I've spent 3 hours doom scrolling. Yeah. My prayer for you in this one, Father, remove the mundane from our lives so that we're fully consumed with the things of you. Help us to be busy with the things that matter to your kingdom. What is your biggest obstacle? If you had to think about those for a minute, pride, prejudice, fear, busyness, or maybe there's something else. Anybody care to say what is your biggest obstacle when it comes to welcoming those around you? Yeah. Fear? Thank you. Pride? Thank you. Yeah. Regardless of what it is for you, can I get you to look at that last question? What's one way you can commit to change? Right? Only you know that. But can I also encourage you, anybody know what Proverbs 27:17 says? Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Can I encourage you to find somebody within this group, somebody that within your close network that can hold you accountable to that change? Because you're not going to do it on your own. It's not how we were designed. We're not meant to do it on our own. We're meant to do it in fellowship with one another. Hold each other accountable to these things, to how you can go about change. As you kind of think through this and as you take this with you, I'm going to pause in just a second and answer any questions you guys might have. I want to jump over here real quick. I'm not going to go through this lesson 6, developing a welcoming plan. You can look at that on your own in your book. There are some good parts in that, but I want to get over here to this. There are things that as you talk about welcoming those outside of your culture that you need to think through. Number one, remember that people are not projects. That may sound easy, but it's really not, because oftentimes, even in evangelism, you can feel like you're just doing a project. How many people did I get to share with? How many people did I get to go through the full gospel presentation with? I'm not saying those are bad things to consider. They're wonderful things to consider, and you should keep doing them, but they're people you're dealing with. It's not just a number. It's not just number 5 for today, number 10 for the semester. These are people, right? Hopefully people that you have relationships with or those that you will have a relationship with. Trust Jesus throughout the process, not plans or tools. That's not, now what I'm not saying is ignore the things that you've been taught in here, right? There's great tools out there, but you still have to trust Jesus through that process. Are you relying on him to lead you to those people that you need to share him with? to those that you just need to welcome in. Coordinate with others, share your plan, pray over your plan. Those are all things you can look at on your own. Here's what I would tell you. I'm going to leave this up here because I think this is important. We'll come back to it here in just a second. When you're talking about welcoming others in, can you put yourself in their shoes for a moment? You show up in a brand new place on your own. All of you did at one point coming here, right? All of you somehow found your way to Maverick BSM. You found your way in these doors. It might have been because somebody invited you, and it might have been because you walked in and you actually dared to come in and sit by yourself the first time, right? Regardless of what it is, how did you feel when you're that new person? Nobody else feels any different than you. There are people from other cultures that are afraid to engage right now. There are people from other cultures, as I talk with them. We have Indian students, and we have Muslim students, and we have some former Hindis who are now coming to our group. I can tell you in just conversations with them that they will say, I was not welcomed everywhere. They're scared in some ways to walk into a new place and actually put themselves out there and say, I'm willing to try here. I remember back about 12 years ago, we were doing a program with ISI here on this campus, welcoming in international students from China. And I remember going and sitting with these Chinese students, and as we sat with them, they kind of looked at us and said, you are the first ones here who have just come and sat with us to eat a meal. We've invited so many people to just come to our place and sit and eat a meal, and you're the first ones that have come. Guys, you can't just do it in a vacuum. You have to do it by putting yourselves out there, getting involved in their lives, and making them feel a part of yours. And that's the hard part, because there you've got to actually, for lack of a better phrase, it actually cost you something, right? Actually cost a little bit of that mundane time, a little bit of that busyness, a little bit of that thing that we hold precious, whatever that is for you. The only thing I can encourage you in is to be looking around you. Be praying for one or two names that you can intentionally begin a relationship with. And can I encourage you, don't just make that a general prayer. Pray for them by name. Those people that you can intentionally build a relationship with. Pray for your work on this campus, that God would prepare the hearts of those that come to be open to the things of Jesus. I pray for this ministry. We commit to praying for this ministry because we support this ministry as a church. We love this ministry. We've had kids that have flowed out of this ministry and are now active in our church body, and we love seeing the impact that they're having for the gospel. We love seeing the impact you guys are having for the gospel. Pray for your co-laborers that God would fill them with boldness to proclaim the good news of Jesus. I don't know how you do it without that, right? Went on a summer project with Campus Crusade one time, and they taught us every morning to get up and say, God, help us today walk in the power of your Holy Spirit to share with those that you'll bring into our path. Guys, I don't know how you do it on your own. Are you committed to praying that God will bring those from other nations into your life in a way where you can share the gospel with them? It's going to get messy. It's going to get uncomfortable. It's not always going to be fun. Are you willing to do it? Only you know the answer to that. Okay? So embrace it. The other chapters in this book that you have in front of you, I gave each of you a copy so you can kind of go through it on your own. I'm going to leave the extra copies here with Ben. If there's a group of people you'd like to work through it with, this doesn't require VIA's involvement. That's the beauty of VIA's material, right? It's all biblically based. It's just going through it. It's discussion. It's looking at things and then walking through it with a group. I would encourage you to find a small group that you can go through this with and just work through it. It starts with the biblical basis for welcoming. It then moves on to the need and the opportunity. I think you all know that. It talks about who can I welcome. It goes into what we talked about with obstacles. It talks about how to do it, and then it talks about developing a welcomer plan. There's no way that I can get through all of that stuff with you in one sitting, but you guys can take this resource and go and do it with other people so that you can engage better with those from another culture. Okay? There's some contact info. I'll leave it up there. Robert Ewing is our VIA DFW area mobilizer. He would love to talk with you guys more. I'm right down the road, would always love to come over and just sit with any of you. Any questions you guys got on this or about VIA material? You don't have to, and that's okay. No? You're good? Again, let me just encourage you, and I'm going to pray for you real quick. Let me just encourage you to please, please, please always be looking at those around you. Always be looking at those who God puts into your path. It's not a mistake. You're sitting in a class, you're paired up with somebody, they're from another country. Please don't think. Now, I guess let me clarify this real quick. What I'm not saying is you have to go intentionally look for those from another nation. You want to look for those who God puts around you, right? If they happen to be from another nation, guys, the impact that you have the opportunity to have on one person who can then take the gospel back to a country that doesn't know Jesus is phenomenal here, especially at this campus. This is an incredibly strategic campus that God has placed you at to reach the nations with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Please don't let that go to waste, okay? All right. I think we're close to time. We're good? I'll stick around for a little bit if any of you want to talk, but I want to just pray over you guys for a minute. Is that okay? Father, God, we are so grateful for you and who you are, for the way you've called each of us, for the way you've redeemed us. You've drawn us into relationship with you. Father, we don't always understand the reasons you place us where you do, but you placed each of these students in this room and on this campus for a reason. Father, I pray that you would draw each of them first and foremost into deeper intimacy with you. Draw them into a deeper relationship with you, Father. Take them to places they never imagined in their own walk with you. And Father, then I pray that you would bring people into their lives who desperately need to hear about your Son, Jesus. Would you put people divinely in their paths so that they cannot help but reach out and welcome them? Father, help them see your plan for the nations. The beauty of all of us, every tribe and every tongue, bowing before you, singing, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. Father, we look forward to that day, and we look forward to those that you put in our lives that will be able to tell about you so that they can join us on that day. Father, embolden these students as they go out on campus. Embolden them as they lead groups here, as they lead the way in Maverick BSM, Father. Help them be men and women who are committed to you and committed to the gospel and committed to the truth. Father, we ask this in the powerful name of your Son, Jesus.